Have you ever been called something racist, sexist, prejudiced, or some sort of slur? I have, and I want to take part in this movement around the first time I was called something. My name is Bobby Umer. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a five times TEDx speaker, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. There's a movement going on where people are sharing these stories, and so I'm going to share mine right now. The first time I was called something racial, that something was bigoted, probably happened earlier, but the first one I remember was I was with my brothers and a bunch of cousins. So there's about 7 of us, and we were in a park at the beach swimming, and these 3 guys came up to us and said, "Go back to your country, Packies." And I was about 8 or 9 years old. It kind of jarred me because it never happened before. And the truth is, I actually didn't really experience much racism growing up in the East Coast, New Brunswick of Canada, because there weren't really many of us brown people and Asians and black people. It was mostly white folks. And so I think we weren't much of a threat. But I think 7 of us together were there. And these 3 guys, I mean, where'd they get the confidence to say such a thing? And so that kind of struck me when I was 8 or 9 years old. The second thing that struck me was one of my cousins who was there. He grew up in Toronto, so he was much more hardened and much more confident, I will say, compared to us New Brunswick folk. And he stood up, took his sunglasses off, and went right up to that person and confronted them and saying, basically, "What the F did you just say, asshole?" That type of thing. Like, it was really, whoa, like kind of threw me. And I couldn't believe how strong and powerful he was when he did that. And it made me think, well, maybe I have to do that someday too. And those people actually backed down. But that was the first time I remember being called a racial slur. Over the years, when I was a kid, I also was called the N-word by some. But again, that was like, I'm a brown guy, so like it didn't really throw me as much. But I remember getting upset because, again, I was in grade 4, he was in grade 2, and I looked at this kid and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I pushed him aside. And as a kid, that's how I reacted. And I'm lucky, again, that I haven't had much racism in my life. But again, this movement to share with the hashtag, the first time I was called whatever, we're looking for people to share their stories and share what they've been through because, I value equality, I value diversity, and there's a lot of issues around racism and prejudice and bigotry and sexism and all that kind of stuff. So we need to stand up and speak out about these things. And so that's why I'm doing this. I can tell you later on over the years, I started to become more race conscious when I actually moved to Toronto because there was more of us. And because there were more of us of different ethnicities and we all started hanging out in different groups, I think I saw more racism because I guess there was more concern or maybe some fear around that, which goes back to the one before with the 3 guys, talking to the seven brown guys. And I can also tell you that since 9/11, it's ramped up even more. I was stopped at the border going with my mother-in-law and my wife, who are both white, and they stopped us and said they're having a random check. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then when I got inside, they took our passports, they searched our car, and then I saw there was like 3 or 4 cars there. And I said, "Have you all been random checked?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then I asked the guy, and he's like, "Well, we random check every 200 cars. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay, I only see like 50 cars. So how can there be a random check of every 200 cars if there's 4 of us here? And I started talking about it, and I'm talking to my mother-in-law, I'm talking to my wife, we should tell them, this doesn't make any sense. And they're like, "Don't say anything. Just I'm a very confrontational guy and I'm very political and whatever." And I was like, but it's reasonable, it's rational. Like, come on, I want to get an explanation. They said, don't say anything, don't rock the boat. And they're very, they're very passive. They don't want a conflict. But I said, no, and I didn't, out of respect for, not creating any more of an issue. And I can tell you, since that time, I've been stopped randomly at the border 3 times, crossing the border when I was driving across. So it's happening. And I can tell you even now, in the last 2 years, I personally feel that there's a newer culture of people who feel emboldened and who feel empowered to be more racist, to be more sexist, to say things, to be more bullying and be more divisive. And it's a big problem because I can tell you in the last 2 years, I've had more racism against me and said to me on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, but also in person, in public. I'm walking down the street and people are saying stuff. It kind of blows my mind more than in the last 2 years than I have in the past 20, 30 years. So that's why it's important for us to speak about this, to share our stories, to share the first time you were called something racist, something sexist, any sort of bullying, divisive type of slurs. So I share that with you today, and I hope this message will resonate and help people to, feel the fact that we're all in this together, and we should get other people to share their stories too and what they're going through. So hope you'll do that as well. Use the hashtag the first time I was called, and then share your story, whether it's via video or via imagery or even just a text post, okay? Thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.